Did you know that right now your body is being penetrated by 1,000 different wireless signals? But I think we're okay. I think we're all okay. We're okay, right? Right. Okay. Yeah, we're good. So wireless networks are vastly underestimated. People often assume just sticking a wireless access point on a ceiling will be enough for it. The main emphasis goes into the configuration, that is setting up your wireless network names and your security around that and getting people to join the network. And while that is a thing, in business environments where you have not one or two or three, but perhaps hundreds of wireless access points, it becomes a pretty big challenge to get all the frequencies right. So that's why in this nugget, we are going to go through the foundation of radio frequency, amplitude, and a little RSSI. That'd be Received Signal Strength Indicator for the wireless snob in all of us, which is really going to lay the fundamentals to where you'll go, oh, okay, I think I know what's happening when one of those clients can't connect or the signal strength is really varied in certain areas. So let me get into it a little bit here. So first off, what is a wireless signal? Why do I care? So I know this is going to sound really almost so obvious it's dumb, but I've got to bring you back to it. Wireless signals are a way of sending digital information, which is literally ones and zeros, through the air. And the reason I want to bring you back to that time and time again is because this gets really complex. And if you forget that, it can just be like, your mind is kind of melting, and then it's like, okay, we're really just sending ones and zeros. And that's really the goal of every single kind of network connection that you have, whether it be an Ethernet cable where you have that copper connection plugging in, a fiber optic cable, which looks exactly the same because it's all I could drop, where you plug in a piece of glass or plastic into there and you're using lights to send. I mean, it's the goal of everything. It's just with copper, you're using electricity. With fiber, you're using light to send ones and zeros across a network environment. But let me ask you, what's the big difference? I mean, between copper and fiber and wireless. I mean, there's one major difference between these guys. Copper and fiber have shielding. They have a cable that's getting it there, and they have protection from interference all around it. In the wireless world, we don't get that luxury. We have to send all these ones and zeros literally through the air and hope that they get there unimpacted by other wireless signals. And therein lies one of the most core ingredients to successful wireless that you can grab onto. When you're sending signals into the air, they are fair game that anybody can step on them, and only one signal can be in the air at a time. Really? I mean, when you've got a frequency, when you're sending data across the airwaves, if something else jumps in and tries to send data, it's done. It explodes. You've dropped that signal. So when we're dealing with wireless connections, figuring out how we can accurately set it up to where that one signal at a time can get out there in the most unhindered way is a big deal. So these signals are sent at distinct frequencies. Something I would love for you to do right now is to go to, not to search for funny cat videos, but go to Google and search for United States radio frequency allocation chart. It'll pop right up there. This thing it's amazing. It literally is where the government has put together a spectrum. You can actually create posters of it and things like that. Let me just click on it. As of January 2016, this is a view of the radio frequencies that exist just over radio frequencies. These are all the different frequency spectrums that are out there. Let me see if we can zoom in a little bit. Now notice right here, it's broken down into the different spectrums. You can see that we have 0 kilohertz all the way up to 300 kilohertz right here. And then as we go down to the next bar, we see 300 kilohertz all the way up to 3 megahertz. And so we can, as we zoom in, let me zoom in a little bit more here. You can see, oh, check it out. There's our AM radio frequencies. There's some mobile frequencies, some maritime, I don't know what that is, but it's a thing, right? And as you keep going down, you get further and further along in the spectrum. We're moving from 3 megahertz all the way up to 30 megahertz. And as we get further down in the spectrum, there's one thing that we're looking for, and it is something called amateur. And what that means is there are certain I mean, good grief, this is insane. We're licensing the air with all of this stuff. I mean, literally, there's, it's. I've always had. You ever do that to yourself? You're like, I just moved to this location, so I just bought this plot of land from somebody. But who's that somebody? I mean, who really owns the earth? Who? I know. I'm in. Who owns the air? The U.S. government does. Right? And the FCC. And they've said, we are going to regulate the airwaves, the frequencies that can fly around, because otherwise, if this didn't exist, anybody could come in and just blast signals and blow up all of our radio communications. So there's organizations that say these are mandated by the government. But in that spectrum, is some of them labeled amateur? Like, let me ask you, do you have a wireless network at home? Yeah, I sure hope so. And, well, if not, you should get one. Did you have to register with the government when you set up that network? You're like, no. You just went and bought a WAP because they've said certain spectrums, for example, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz are labeled as that quote unquote amateur frequency, meaning anybody can bring up something that uses those frequencies without registering with the government, and you can use that. It should be familiar to you. 900 megahertz, remember the old cordless phones, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz. And the beauty of that is we can use those frequencies without registering, but so can everybody else. So it's a big deal to figure out which frequencies we should use. So that's the first challenge that we have as we're trying to figure out our wireless signals. But the whole another challenge is that we also have to think about the signal strength. The amplitude of the signal is technically what that's called. That's how strong is that signal. And I know that when you first think about it, you're like, well, the stronger is better, right? Most of the time. But you can also get too strong to where it becomes almost like somebody's yelling in your ear. Like if you have a wireless access point and you mount it on the ceiling right there, it's like, oh, it's radiating the signal. And you've got your laptop sitting right underneath that's tuning into that signal. Well, it's kind of like screaming at you because you've got this signal that's extraordinarily loud. So you might end up with distortion because the signal's too loud. Or you might end up with somebody far away from that signal that just can't barely hear it. What did he say? Yeah, you can't hear it. It's being degraded. It's faded away to where we can't make sense of those zeros and ones that we're sending through the network. And so you have these constant retransmission requests, which slows the whole thing down. At the end of the day, and let me give you the high-level view, the final signal strength is measured in RSSI, Received Signal Strength Indicator. Now, not many people know about this in the normal world because they're used to the cell phone bars, right? They look on their computer and they're like, oh, it looks like, that I've got 3 bars, so I must have a good signal. Well, all that is an extraordinarily simple way of trying to describe received signal strength indicator to the end user. As a matter of fact, you've seen them, right? When you're looking at your laptop in the lower right, you see those little bars right there. Microsoft even went a step further. And they allow you at the command line to go in and type in the command net shell is the command. It's how you can control your network cards. And I can say WLAN show interface. Right? Hit the enter key. And it's actually saying, hey, you're connected to the SSID C-Home 5, which, by the way, is Char Home. That's what that stands for. 5 being 5 gigahertz spectrum. And then right there, I see the signal at, it's still 72%. That's not RSSI. That's a feeling of how strong this signal is just based on a percentage, but that's Microsoft doing some magic behind the scenes. Really, the only way you're going to get RSSI is by downloading a tool like this, where you've got, like this is from the Windows Store Wi-Fi Analyzer, and it's like, hey, you're connected to C-Home 5, and your RSSI is actually negative 55 dBm. I want to give you something that's going to be really valuable to you because you're going to see this all the time when you get into signal strength. So first off, 0 is like you're standing on the moon on top of an access, like you have become one with the access point on a moon in a vacuum, and you've got such amazing, powerful signal that your body is literally glowing with wireless. Like you're never going to get that. Probably the best you can get in any wireless world is like a negative 20 dBm to maybe a negative 30 dBm. And I would say that's probably like, that's almost too powerful to where you're like, like we must, like, where's the WAP? You know, is it under the desk? Like, where is that thing? It's way too close. So usually when you're in that, you know, negative 40, negative 50, that's where you're doing okay. You know, that's like an adequate connect. Like I look at this, I'm like, I'm doing all right. I'm probably a little faded, and that's simply because I'm using 5 gigahertz. I know where it is, and I'm right here, and I've got a drywall around me, and then I literally have a brick wall right there, and on the other side of that brick wall is a little rack that's metal, and inside of that metal rack, that's so dumb. Don't do that. Don't put your WAP inside of a metal. Metal is evil. It reflects. So inside of that metal rack is a WAP. It just looks better there. It's cleaner. So that's where I'm like, okay, I should probably move that around, right? Because I'm kind of trending down into that negative 60, negative 7. By the time you're at negative 70, you're dead, right? And I want to make sure that you know this isn't like a percentage. That's why when I see that command line, it's like, oh, you're about 74%. I'm like, no, it's a lie. There is no percentage. It's just kind of like an estimate of where you're at. The dBm, it's like, so think of it this way. When you're a negative 51 and you go to negative 52, you just doubled your worthlessness, your badness. You're now twice as bad as you were before. When you go from negative 52 to negative 53, you're now twice as bad. So that's the kind of metric. It's not like as you kind of creep your way down, you're slowly getting. I mean, it's like bam, bam. You're getting really bad really quick, right? So that's how that RSSID works. Jot that down. Just say, you know, you're on the moon. This is great, almost too good. You know, 50, negative 40, 50, maybe even 60-ish. You're okay. You're getting a decent signal. Once you move into that negative 70 and beyond, you're faded. You're ever seen Back to the Future Part 2 where his hand's like, oh, I'm fading. I'm losing it. I'm losing my network signal. I can't communicate anymore. And keep in mind, that's just the received signal strength indicator. Don't forget your SNR, your signal to noise ratio, because there's always noise that's happening. It's called the noise floor. There's radio frequencies everywhere, right? And the whole goal is to make ours more powerful so that the noise doesn't impact them. But the higher the noise goes, the lower the higher your signal to noise ratio is, right? And so you don't want to have a high signal to noise ratio. You want to have a low signal to noise ratio because you want your signal to be way more powerful than all of the noise out there. And that comes from having the right placements and also choosing the right frequencies to use. But guys, you guys know me at this point, right? You know that I would be remiss to just say this and feel good about myself. I want to show you how this works and where it came from, because the why to me is really important. So I thought, if I'm going to show them how it works, I really need to have a good definition of what is a frequency. So I went online. I'm like, I want to be official, right? And so I went to Wikipedia, and they're like, it's the number of occurrences of a repeating event per unit of time. And then they gave some examples. They're like a newborn heart beats 120 times each minute. You know, you go to get coffee frequently, and I'm like, what? This has nothing. It's almost like when you're staring this close at something, you're like, frequency is a generic word. So is that a hint on something? I mean, when I'm thinking of radio frequency, this is identifying how often something happens. And that would be exactly what it is. Because our German friend, Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, I'm sure somebody from Germany is listening right now. They're like, that's not how you say it at all. You're right. He was the guy. By the way, he only lived to be 36 years old. He figured all this out by the time he was 36. Amazing. So he coined the Hertz. And what the Hertz is it's a measure of frequency over 1 second, right? A Hertz is how long it takes a radio signal to go up and down through one full cycle in 1 second. So that's where we can use those Hertz. Anytime you have something that's variable, like it's going up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. It's a toggle. It's a 1. It's a 0. It's a 1. It's a 0. So we can use that to transmit our 1s and 0s. But I can't imagine how long it would take if we sent data at a Hertz speed, right? That'd be 1, 1, and 0 per second. So we don't even talk in that language. We measure things in terms of kilohertz or megahertz or gigahertz. So kilohertz is 1,000 of these cycles per second. You're like, right? And again, now we're like, I can see or megahertz. Wait a sec. I just said 900 megahertz a moment ago, right? So it'd be 900 million cycles per second, right? I can't draw that. It's blah. It's just big. So that tells you just how many up and down cycles we can get in that second. So now we're starting to think, okay, so if that's million, then gigahertz is 1,000 million. That's a billion. Wait, 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, 2.4 billion cycles a second. Or wait, okay, so are you telling me, Jeremy, that 5 gigahertz is double the number of cycles? Did you get that? And that's why 5 gigahertz can actually send more data, can transmit more data than 2.4. But now we're getting ahead of ourselves because it's these two frequencies that we care about. And it's these two frequencies that I'll be talking about in the next video. I was like, yes! I was like, I'm going to land this plane and they're going to be like, I want to watch the next video. So that's what we're going to do. You've now learned the foundation of radio frequencies, amplitude, and a little bit about RSSI. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.